Welcome to No Judgment Zone. I am your host, Ursula Payne. In today's episode, we will be discussing ways to advance the diversity, equity, and inclusion here at Slippery Rock University and answer the question of where can we go from here? Now we are going to begin by going to Josh VanDeMark in the field to hear more.
Welcome back to On the Spot with Josh. My name is Joshua VanDeMark, and today we will be discussing the topic of advancing DEI around the Slippery Rock University campus with students anonymously. The first question we'll be asking students is, why did you attend Slippery Rock University?
Slippery Rock was referred to me by a lot of my colleagues because it was known for its education program and being a great institution for future teachers.
I chose to attend Slippery Rock University because I liked the small class sizes, I really liked the program for my major, and overall the environment of the campus.
For our second question, we'll be asking the students is, do they feel DEI is represented well in the classroom and on campus as a whole?
I think Slippery Rock does a really good job of including everybody within campus because of the many groups that are offered here, I should say.
I think it depends on the class. I've certainly had professors that are really aware about diversity initiatives and stuff, but obviously some professors are pretty lacking in that. But I would say overall on campus it's kind of mediocre. I can tell that they're trying to do more, but I would like to see some more progress.
I think it could be better represented. I have a vague idea of what it is, and as an education major, I feel like diversity inclusion is a huge topic in my field and should be more represented, especially in education majors.
So right now on campus, I know there's a lot of different organizations and workshops and stuff focused on diversity and inclusion. I've attended some myself. I love the diversity dialogues. I do think that going forward, maybe more classes could try to tie in that work in their classes or require going to those kind of workshops because I think it really is important for everyone to learn about.
I had to take one of the new diversity, equity, and inclusion courses that they're testing out this spring and next fall. And they mainly focus on race and racism. They don't really touch anything on people with disabilities. Sexuality and gender identity is just kind of generally brushed over.
The third question we'll be asking the students is, what changes would you like to see at Slippery Rock University regarding DEI, if any?
Regarding diversity and inclusion, I think Slippery Rock can definitely improve their accessibility here. People with disabilities, physical disabilities more specifically, like people in wheelchairs or even somebody on crutches, has a really hard time accessing some buildings and getting around. So I think if Slippery Rock had to change one thing, I would say their accessibility would need to improve greatly.
Well, for starters, they need to have harsher punishments, because I feel like even if someone does get caught being discriminatory or something, it's not a big punishment. I don't think anyone's gotten expelled yet because of it, which is really bad. Maybe have some classes that are mandatory that teach about diversity. I think that could definitely help a little bit.
All right, so I think that Slippery Rock does a really good job of including everybody, so I really don't think that they should change anything. I think the current climate of the student body is in a good position.
I think it would be really nice for LGBT students to feel more comfortable on campus. I know a couple of people have said they feel uncomfortable sometimes in certain areas just hanging out. And another thing that would be important for me is I would like to see some parts on campus be more accessible to disabled people. I've definitely walked in areas on campus where I've just thought this doesn't really feel accessible, so I would like for everyone to be able to enjoy every area on campus.
Next, we're going to talk to Zach Gibson about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and possible changes that we can make whether on campus or as students.
My first question to you, though, is, Zach, what brought you to this campus?
It's not so small that that you're going to know everybody here. There's always new people to meet. But I liked the size because it felt to me like you weren't going to be one of a number. They weren't just going to be you're just X in a pool of so many, so that if you needed extra help or extra attention or focus on some things, you could go to resources and find them there and have them actually put in the effort instead of just having to run through the process because there's so many people that have to see in a day.
in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, do you think that the university does a good job of truly implementing programs and clubs as a whole? And do you maybe feel that there should be any changes just as a whole?
In terms of the implementation, I feel like programs and clubs, committees, stuff like that, I feel like the administration as a whole does a pretty good job of making sure, although I do feel there are some specific areas that could be focused on or shed a little more emphasis on, I think overall they're doing a pretty good job of just making the campus available, friendly, accessible. I'm trying to find the perfect word for it, but just inclusive.
So regarding DEI, Zach, what changes do you think that students could possibly make in the classroom or on campus as a whole?
For students, I think really what it comes down to is being intentional about creating an open and inclusive space for all students. Because this is a place, universities are places to become educated and to grow. So I feel that coming into Slippery Rock with growth being the goal and seeking to understand when you're learning, not just seeking to pass a test or make the grade, learning about not only just the course material, but the other students that are here. Like, with everything that happened in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of disconnection, and I feel that being open to creating connections is something that could really just transform the student culture at Slippery Rock and just make it a more better place inclusively and culturally as a whole.
Thanks for tuning in to On the Spot with Josh. My name is Joshua VanDeMark. Stay tuned for a discussion at the roundtable with Amanda Reilly.
Do you remember when you were told not to play with fire? You were told to be quiet. When they said caring wasn't in your generation's DNA. When they said stop playing with toys. Do you remember when they said stop dreaming? At Slippery Rock, we inspire the dreams, the noise, the caring to challenge you to be your best. Now and in the future, Slippery Rock University. Experience the difference. Do you remember when you were told to sit still? Walk, don't run. Don't sit too close to the screen. Don't touch that. Color inside the lines. At Slippery Rock, we inspire the motion, the music, and the moments of challenge that allow you to be your best, now and in the future. Slippery Rock University. Experience the difference.
Welcome back. My name is Amanda Reilly. My pronouns are she, her, and this is A Seat at the Table, where we will get to hear the voices and opinions from our highly involved students here at SRU. As we know, we have taken the first steps towards a more inclusive university. However, there is still more that we can do. Today, let's discuss ways we can do better and make SRU more inclusive. Before we begin with our discussion, could everyone please state their names, pronouns, and class standing?
Thank you for having me back. Frankie Walker, graduating senior, and I am a public relations major.
Anaya Gaz, she, her, and I'm a graduate student.
I'm Antoine Stribling, he, him, and strategic communication major.
And I'm Courtney Pierre. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior recreational therapy major.
Thank you for returning to A Seat at the Table. We are so happy to have you back. Now let's dive right into our first question. We all know you are students who hold leadership roles here at SRU. How can you influence those around you to get involved? Whoever wants to start.
Personally, I know it's, as a freshman, very nerve-wracking to breaking into clubs and organizations, but I kind of just like to lead by example and invite people to come along with me at any event, especially because I don't like going places alone. So I know that they're feeling the same nerves I'm feeling. So once they get into that, you know, the clubs, and they get comfortable without me, that's when I start also start inviting your friends, or just go pull more and more, and I just continue to go with them, so it makes them a little more excited to be involved.
Yeah, just making sure that people know about all of the opportunities they have to find groups, I feel like is important. This could be done through flyers, just letting professors know about these organizations, however you want to make people aware that they have resources.
Also, just talking to people really, I think, is like, when you see someone with a friendly face, you want to talk to them naturally. So I think starting a conversation with someone and just putting that thought in their head, like, what are you doing tonight? There's a cool event. We got gay bingo, and we can go to that tonight. But it starts with just, putting your foot forward and talking to people, I think.
Yeah, I think also, as you get into the leadership roles on campus, that creating the space and creating, opportunities for these diversity events to occur, within your own organization, within, if you're partnering with someone, just giving the space for, your organization members to learn, and also just anyone else who wants to show up.
I think bringing it to your own organization too is really important, either in a meeting and having a guest speaker, or if you're a first seminar leader and you can bring it into the classroom. That's always like a good place to start and kind of start that conversation in your organizations too.
Yeah.
All right, how can all of these student voices and DEI clubs unify and share one powerful voice?
I think that, like we were saying earlier with the events, I feel more organizations shouldn't be afraid to collaborate with other events. Create an event that maybe addresses like an intersectionality. That way, the members of both groups will be involved in these or in these events, which honestly at Slippery Rock, like more people need to get involved in stuff. So I feel like that would be a good way to foster more attendance for these types of events.
Yeah, I think addressing the issues that are happening in different communities are also very important, and being a good ally and supporting them in whatever means that is. If that's using your voice, using your name and petitions, using whatever means you can to support your friends and peers is really important.
I say collaboration is a big one, especially like the e-boards of two separate clubs getting together, really talk about what each club is doing, and then reaching out and creating an event together, and specifically collaborating with someone whose club is very different from yours. So maybe not like two Greek organizations coming together, but maybe Black Action Society and then Rock Out creating something together. So it's bringing two entirely different communities together to really learn about something and grow something bigger.
Yeah. Also, just like listening to people, keeping your ears open, like to call it reading a room. Just like fully acknowledging and being present, what people are saying, and that's really the key to a successful collaboration. Like we're all talking about, is just keeping your ears open.
I think unity too can be supporting someone when they're speaking and not always speaking with them as well. So it's important to know to support organizations and not always share the voice that they have too.
Sure. Yeah.
So what are some ways SRU has made advances to establish a more inclusive campus?
In my time here, I have been here 5 years. Originally when I started, it was just Rock Out. There was only one LGBTQ plus organization. Now there is two, so that number has doubled. But I just feel the campus climate has improved. There definitely is work to be done still, though.
There's at least discussion of it. I mean, like we have this right here, where we can openly talk about it with a panel. But I think as far as coming directly from Slippery Rock University, I feel like it's always very in the middle as far as talking about controversial topics. So I think Slippery Rock has come a long way, but we also have a long way to go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really.
I think the students really are the ones implementing all the stuff that's really pushing Slippery Rock along, and we're trying to get administration to really get on board with us. So they listen to us, but kind of takes them a while to really listen to us. So we're getting to the point where we're creating spaces for ourselves and then having them join in afterwards.
Yeah, I think an example of that too is, the Rock Life program, which is this great program on campus for individuals with disabilities to, have a college experience and get to be independent. That was threatened earlier in the year, and there was a nice petition with, I believe, over like 12,000 signatures from people on campus, from friends, family, community members, and that was not only incredible just to see that sense of, advocacy amongst everybody, but, how that was able to prolong the program and find solutions, which was good.
When I first asked the question, I noticed we all kind of had a pause, and a big thing with that, I think, is how you talked about students are the ones taking the steps, but the university kind of is coming after, and I think the university itself, our board, and our higher-ups need to take more steps too. So to wrap things up and answer the overall topic of today's discussion, where can we, as SRU, go from here?
I think just to reiterate, really listen to the students. We are the ones keeping the university open. Without us, there would be no Slippery Rock University. And the people running it are people who have one foot out the door, either in the workplace or, sad to say, in life. So we really are the future. I know we hear it all the time, but you really need to listen to us because we're the ones living this life. You guys are looking from the outside, looking in on us.
Yeah, as far as, even just from a specific standpoint, the accessibility on campus for physical disabilities is really poor. Even beyond the geographical things, the things that can't be, fixed, but there's, lack of ramps inside of buildings that were built a few years ago. And there's just things that are very, could be easily fixed and addressed and really help to include our population of people with disabilities and students with disabilities on campus, but we have yet to see that change happen.
For me, it's the emails. Like after something controversial happens, we always get an email that's very, I'll call it Switzerland. It's always in the middle, and obviously we want to be PC and politically correct, but for an example, a few years ago when I think I was a freshman, there was a Black Student Union poster that was defaced. There were slurs all over it, and the email that came after was, whoopsie, sorry, my bad. But it's we need a more extreme reaction to such a extreme occurrence, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Agree.
And I think these are great steps that SRU can start with and hopefully go forward in the future with. All right, well, that is all the time that we have for today. So thank you all for joining us and taking a seat at the table. Stay tuned after the commercial break for One-on-One, where we will hear an expert's opinion on how to make these DEI advances.
Do you remember when you were told not to play with fire? You were told to be quiet. When they said caring wasn't in your generation's DNA. When they said stop playing with toys. Do you remember when they said stop dreaming? At Slippery Rock, we inspire the dreams, the noise, the caring to challenge you to be your best. Now and in the future, Slippery Rock University. Experience the difference.
Hello SRU and welcome back to One-on-One. Today we have Dr. Monique Alexander with us. Dr. Alexander is an associate professor in the Elementary and Early Childhood Department. They earned their PhD in Curriculum and Instruction at Penn State. Dr. Alexander is also the faculty co-chair of the President's Commission on Race and Ethnic Diversity, as well as the retention coordinator for the Rock Teach program. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sophie.
Oh my God, we love that you're here. So to start it off, how do you think advancing DEI on campus would improve the lives of the student body?
Sure. So I think one of the big issues we have in general with DEI work is that we decontextualize it, right? We talk about diversity, or we talk about intersectionality, or we talk about gender identity in these little siloed spaces. But in real life, we all have to go out into the world and live in these very global and very permeable spaces. And I think I wonder often if our students realize that when they're gonna leave here, they're not gonna be at Slippery Rock forever. And so I think it's our responsibility to ensure that the curriculum and the programs and the way that we run the university kind of highlights that fact of life. You're not gonna be in this bubble for the rest of your life. You're gonna have to understand what it's like to be elsewhere. And then I also just think for students who lack that sense of belonging, lack the sense of feeling like they can be whoever they want to be here, improving these measures or diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus will really support their mental health and their general overall well-being. And to me, we're always supposed to be pulling out the little guy. Like, we're always supposed to be there for the people who are struggling the most. And so those are just some tenets that I think we can really be doing here on campus.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there's any areas in DEI that need immediate attention, like right now?
Several. I would say first is probably language. I think there's a huge nomenclature barrier. Sometimes we say these words, sometimes we say these words, and they trigger people. When we say race, people tense up, or when we say gender identity or sexual orientation, everyone just kind of has these very strange reactions because I'm not certain that they understand what those words mean. And so I think all of us have to spend some time in understanding what that language is and where it goes and what it means. I was telling you earlier that I'm not an expert, right? Like, I'm a Black woman and I know a lot about being Black. And so I am a DEI champion for Black women, right? Like, this is the space where I feel the most comforted. And so in my intersectionality, I kind of use my disposition and the experiences that I have to make sure that I'm an ally for other people who may be minoritized. And so I think just not expecting one person to be like this DEI champion or this DEI expert is gonna be very important for us. And I guess maybe lastly, just this premise of invisible labor. People who are in minoritized communities seem to always be the people that have to bring up the hard issues. They seem to always be the people that have to be doing the work. And that is where the role of allies come in to say, like, I'm gonna take some of this burden off of you, or I am going to compensate you for the labor that you're doing, even though it's something that I can't see. It's always a lot of intimate care. It's always a lot of just being there. It's very time consuming. And so I really like some of those issues to be addressed in this space.
Yeah, no, I think that would be awesome if we could do something about that. I know in your introduction we said you were part of the President's Commission on Race and Ethnic Diversity. What does the program do in terms of advancing DEI topics?
Sure. So all of the President's Commissions are themed, and they were created to kind of be able to make recommendations to the President about ways in which we want the campus to improve or how we want the campus to run. So obviously the President's Commission on Race and Ethnic Diversity is advancing any issues of race or belonging, or any issues that are tacked onto an ethnic group. Usually our students of color are most likely the students and populations that we service. We want to be able to make recommendations to the President about that. So for the last 2 years, we've been working on trying to understand what people's perception of race and ethnicity is on Slippery Rock's campus. We've also been trying to look at our bias policies to see if we can, if at all, engage in some of the thought behind clearing those up and making sure that they are responded to in a manner that everybody feels comfortable with. We've also been looking into how to build better relationships with our on-campus police department. And so there are over 35 people on the commission, and each of them are incredibly invested in making sure that this is a really great space, especially for our minoritized students. So we just spend a lot of time trying to make accurate and clear and actionable recommendations to the president about just a wide variety of issues that we see.
Yeah. On the show, we talk about seeing two spectrums of DEI. So there's people that love DEI, they want to know about it, they want to learn. And then there's the other side of people that don't want to know and they don't want to learn. How would you address that side?
It's really hard. I like to think that identity, me teaching students about their own identity and what their identity means to them is always the first step in all of my courses. Who are you? Where did you come from? How have you been influenced by your primary circle, your exterior circle, the times in which you grew up in, your generation or whatever, and kind of helping them understand that that's mostly insular. And so once they come to really flesh out who they are as humans, we can then map that out onto how other people may be. And so it is always, it's beautiful to see them kind of say oh my gosh, I love this type of music because this is how my mom used to sing to me when I was growing up, and for someone else to have a very different story but have the same exact feeling. And so it's a very long journey. It's such hard work. But I think that is what the DEI courses are supposed to do. They're supposed to kind of spread out that work over time, build empathy, build compassion, build understanding, help people understand there are fundamental frameworks that really do exist in this world, and that my experience is definitely different than yours. So I just think it's just so time consuming. I'm not gonna lie. And it is very, very taxing. It is a very taxing responsibility.
Yeah, no, that does not surprise me. And I'm so sorry, but it looks like that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your time here with us today, Dr. Alexander. Stay tuned to hear a final word from Ursula.
Do you remember when you were told not to play with fire? You were told to be quiet. When they said caring wasn't in your generation's DNA. When they said stop playing with toys. Do you remember when they said stop dreaming? At Slippery Rock, we inspire the dreams, the noise, the caring to challenge you to be your best. Now and in the future, Slippery Rock University. Experience the difference. Do you remember when you were told to sit still? Walk, don't run. Don't sit too close to the screen. Don't touch that. Color inside the lines. At Slippery Rock, we inspire the motion, the music, and the moments of challenge that allow you to be your best, now and in the future. Slippery Rock University. Experience the difference.
Thank you for tuning in to the final episode of No Judgment Zone. We have had some amazing discussions along the way, so be sure to check out WSRU-TV's YouTube for all of our previous episodes. Before we go, we would also like to give a huge shout out to Dr. Fleming back at home. Thank you for everything. Take care.